Mark Levin, who's on the line now. Mark, the president has said this morning that he would like to see gay marriages that are conducted in states where it is now legal be recognized in all 50 states. I mean, did the door get open to that yesterday?
No, absolutely. You know, a lot of these lawyers are giving me a headache. So let me explain this in plain terms. You got two cases. The Defense of Marriage Act, the federal government defined marriage very radically as between a man and a woman. Isn't that radical? And they said for purposes of federal law and federal benefits, Congress said, and the president signed, it's between a man and a woman. So the Supreme Court gets this case, and the Supreme Court spends 7 pages or more trashing Congress, trashing people who believe in traditional marriage indirectly, basically calling them bigots. And the Supreme Court finds a new right, and this is what's key. Under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution, under the Due Process Clause, doesn't call it substantive due process. I don't want to get into the weeds, but says, look, this violates the Due Process Clause under the Fifth Amendment. Now, beats me how it does, and beats the dissenters how it does. And notice they didn't go to the Equal Protection Clause because that would have been too much because it's never been viewed that way. Okay. So now we have a Supreme Court decision that says there's absolutely no justification for the federal government to define marriage as between a man and a woman. Now, before we get to California, let me ask you a question. So a case comes back to the Supreme Court based on a state law where there is standing. And they say, well, the state legislature in, let's say, Kansas, and the governor has signed an amendment to their constitution defining marriages between a man and a woman. What do you think this court's going to say?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think this court's going to say? This has more than to do with the Defense of Marriage Act. The court just said there's no justification for Congress to define marriage as between a man and a woman. Do you think this court is going to say but there is a justification for Kansas to do it?
Right.
That's number one. Number two, what happened in California is a complete and utter disgrace. And let me explain why. The people fought over a proposition. One side won, one side lost. All they did is amend their constitution to define marriage as it has always been defined between a man and a woman. The activists went up and down the state court system. Then they forum shop, they go to San Francisco, and they find a judge who everybody thinks is in the closet. Turns out he was, Vaughn Walker. Vaughn Walker takes the case. He runs an outrageous trial there. It is a appeal. Now, let me ask you a question. Why is the federal judiciary involved in this at all? People like to say, leave it to the states. Lawyers are misinterpreting this. The Supreme Court said it's up to the states. Well, why the hell is a federal district judge involved?
Because, Mark Levin, they only want to leave it to the states if the states agree with their position.
That's right. Exactly right. And I want to get to a bigger point. So now, with the court ruling that there's no standing unless the governor or the attorney general stands in, that means a governor and an attorney general can now defy state legislatures anytime they pass this by just saying, I'm not going to find it. And then the people and the state legislatures have absolutely no recourse. In other words, as Scalia said yesterday, we're 1 or 2 steps away. The fix is in. There's really no way around this now. The court has set the standard. It's also set the process. And let me explain 2 other quick things. People who are cheering this, I hear callers while I'm in the car saying, I'm a conservative, but this is the destruction of the constitutional system. I don't care if you're for or against gay marriage. If you're for gay marriage, then fight it out in the states and win or lose. That's been moving rather quickly, as a matter of fact. But this top-down, authoritarian, iron-fisted crap coming from 5 lawyers who defy Congress, who defy the states, who turn judicial review on its head is unacceptable. And let me suggest that if this is ever used against minorities, as it was in the Dred Scott case and some of these other cases, then people won't be cheering this so much.
Yeah.
And as for the full faith and credit clause, the President of the United States, people need to understand, in the 1930s, the Supreme Court ruled that the full faith and credit clause does not allow one state to fundamentally change the laws or policies of another state. Tax decisions have to be upheld, divorce decisions upheld. But if Massachusetts says we recognize gay marriage and Virginia says no, Massachusetts cannot impose that under the full faith and credit clause, although I don't know anymore because the law doesn't seem to matter.
All right.
Hey,
well, we're going to, I guess, go ahead quickly.
Can I just ask one more quick question? Because I want to zoom out. You just said, set aside same-sex marriage. That's the part of Scalia's decision, or his dissent, I should say, that really stuck out to me. His last sentence, I think, where he says, I promise you this. The only thing that will confine the court's holding is its sense of what it can get away with. That sounds foreboding to me. What is he suggesting?
He's suggesting that we're one or two cases away from the court imposing its will. These 5 American citizens who are dressed up as judges imposing their opinion on the entirety of the country. They didn't do it in this decision, but they set the stage. There's no way around this. When the court said that Congress does not have the power, which it surely does, to define marriage for the purposes of federal statutes and benefits, then no state's going to be able to do it either. That's Scalia's point, and he's exactly right.
Mark, politically, do you think it's a smart idea? Republicans are suggesting they should move for a constitutional amendment. Do you think that's a smart idea politically at this point?
There will be no constitutional amendment coming out of this Congress with 2/3 votes of both houses of Congress. Now, this is the Congress that won't reverse Obamacare. You think they're going to take this on?
No.
No, you're exactly right. The political landscape is not such that could occur.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Mark, it's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for taking some time to be with us this morning.
You guys are great. God bless you.
Yeah, thank you. We think you're great, too.
He is the great one.
Well, he is the great one, and, we're still striving to be as great as he.
We're the pretty good ones.
We're the pretty good ones. That's right.